Alrighty, we are here. All right, I think I'm going. Yes. Welcome, everyone. It's Dr. Bridget Young here for Happy Hour. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Bridget Young. I'm a doctor of perinatal nutrition and founder of babyformulaexpert.com. And I am coming to you tonight. I'm really happy hour, so coming to you with a glass of wine to talk about the European formula recall that's happening in the U.S. Worth having some wine over. So recently, one specific company recalled a bunch of formula that they had imported and sold to parents in the United States. So I'm going to go through what was involved with that recall kind of from a nutrition standpoint so you understand why this recall is different from a recall that would happen in the United States or happen with US formula rather, and what my opinion is you should do about it. So first, the recall that happened was only for formulas sold through the Little Bundle website. However, the formulas that were sold there are sold other places. So here's the deal. If you have read my blog article about European formula, which I highly recommend you do, I talk about each of the issues that are brought up in this recall. The biggest one that they bring up and the one that has the scariest language in the recall is iron. So here's the deal. I'm trying to think of how to begin this. So this is the second time I've seen this happen over the past 5 years. I don't work with the FDA. I don't work with any of these companies. This is just what I see happen. One company gets really big. One company that sells European formula gets really big. Seems to make, I don't know if it's they make enough money or they sell enough formula, they catch the FDA's attention and the FDA shuts them down. So I've seen it happen before, more than once. This is the third time I've seen it happen, and I think that's exactly what happened here. So here is how the FDA the FDA requirements are involved. So as you know, all European formulas, none of them meet FDA guidelines because they don't go through FDA approval. So all European formula is not FDA approved. It is approved by the European Commission, which is the EU version of the FDA. They regulate formula over here, over there, FDA regulates formula here. So it's a little funny to me when I see the just one formula being come out they don't meet FDA guidelines. No European formulas meet FDA guidelines. They don't even try because they're not made to be sold here. So that's one thing. So, and I've made a lot of videos that talk about the differences in regulation between Europe and the United States when it comes to formula. And one that I bring up a lot is iron. And here's where the nutrition crux of this recall. The United States has a higher minimum iron requirement with nuance than Europe. In the United States, if you want to sell a formula that has less than 1 milligram per 100 kcal, so per 100 calories is kind of the base unit we use here, less than 1 milligram, it has to have specific wording on the label that is either supplemental iron may be necessary or additional iron may be necessary, one of those two phrases, by law. So if it doesn't have that phrase and you have less than 1 mg of iron, it's illegal. So that's what you're seeing here. Now, whether or not that matters is a conversation you have with your pediatrician. Here are some things that your pediatrician is likely to talk to you about and consider. Let me back up a little bit. So how much iron does a baby really need to grow? Obviously, that's a little bit contentious. The Europeans have decided a little bit less than the Americans have decided. And it's contentious because it's actually a hard question to answer. Breast milk has way lower levels of iron than any formulas sold. But breast milk iron is packaged totally differently and super bioavailable and has all these cofactors that help it to be absorbed. So it's really hard for us to replicate that in formula. So we know we need more, but exactly how much is ideal, obviously, very well-respected experts have landed on a little bit of different values. So the United States has taken kind of a classic U.S. approach of we don't know, more is probably better. It's I don't know, seems very American to me. And the Europeans have a much lower minimum level. And you also have to remember that European formulas are staged. So there's stage 1, for which is roughly birth to around 6 months. It's supposed to be to around when your baby starts eating solid foods. And then stage 2 is for that and beyond for older babies. So you often see much lower iron doses in stage 1 than in stage 2. That's because a healthy term baby's born with a boatload of iron stores. Again, if they're healthy and everything's gone well in their body, they use all that iron up to grow, and then by about 6 months, they need more. This is exactly why we recommend introducing solid foods around that time, because at least for an exclusively breastfed baby, at about 6 months, the iron that's in breast milk is not enough for their needs for the average baby, which is why we recommend introducing iron-rich foods around that time. All makes sense. So a lot of European formulas are right on this bubble 1 milligram per 100 kcal level. So anything below it, they obviously don't have that additional iron must be necessary phrase because they haven't even bothered to try to meet FDA requirements. But if they're being sold as formula in the United States, the FDA is well within their rights to say, like, hey, you're feeding babies here, you're not meeting our requirements, recall. So if this is you and your formula is listed on there, the FDA says just discard it. I cannot tell you what to do. I want you to understand what the recall is about. So I've just had so many panicked messages, and I completely understand the FDA stance, but I'm like, oh, panicking parents in the middle of the night is like the last thing anybody wants to do. Having a baby is so hard to begin with. So understanding the differences and what the issue is hopefully will help. So call your pediatrician, make sure they know the iron amounts that are in the formula that you're feeding. They're all darn close to 1, obviously under 1 if they're on the recall list in stage 1 anyways. And I'll post the link to the actual FDA recall because it gives a nice chart of the iron concentrations. Here are the things your doctor's probably going to think about and ask you about that affect your baby's iron status and risk of becoming iron deficient or developing iron deficiency anemia. 1, how old was your baby when they were born? So the recall specifically says this does not have enough iron for premature babies. Well, term formulas. U.S. term formulas don't have enough iron for premature babies. Premature babies are their own special case. They have their own special formulas. You have a neonatologist on board. Like, nobody should be feeding European or U.S. term formulas to premature babies. So, like, put that out of your mind. Or if it's you, definitely call your doctor. How old the baby is and how they've been growing. So has your baby had a lot of illness, had long extensive periods of sickness that would use up their iron stores more quickly? Similar question, have they grown like crazy amounts? Did they start off at the 25th percentile and jump to the 75th percentile in 2 months? That uses up their iron stores more quickly, meaning they may need a little extra iron a little sooner. Are they eating solid foods? If they're eating solid foods, do they only eat like pear puree every day, or are they having maybe iron fortified cereal, meat, spinach puree, foods that are providing additional iron on board? Are they exclusively formula fed? Are they mixed fed? Are they getting some breast milk? How much breast milk? You can see all these things kind of come together for your pediatrician to make a gauge of how critical is the iron concentration in the formula that you're feeding. Are they taking an iron supplement? I know I work with a lot of pediatricians, and a lot of them have very different protocols of when and how often they prescribe iron supplements. So they're on like polydivysol with iron is a popular one, something like that. If that's the case, they probably don't care. Do they want to order an iron status test for your baby? Or do you want to request one? Like, those are really easy things. It involves a poke, so not easy, but easy enough in the medical field to order if you're really curious. So those are the things your pediatrician's going to think about when you're discussing your baby's iron status, and they may ask you about. So understanding where your baby falls on how critical is this iron level is probably important and going to give you just a better understanding of the recall. The other thing that's mentioned in the recall also makes me giggle a little bit, but I totally understand the FDA here. They're like, it doesn't meet your American labeling requirements, such as having the label in English. Like, that makes perfect sense. If you're selling in America, it should be in English, but it's a German product and the label's in German, that's not going to cut it. So some of the labeling stuff, again, kind of justified from the FDA stance, but not nutritionally relevant. The Europeans usually, like I said, we do things in units per 100 kcals, and they do things per 100 milliliters. So, a scientist can easily go back and forth in their head, but makes it hard for parents to compare. And so the FDA is like, can't do that. She's like, I totally get. So the nutritional component of the recall was the iron, and I just went over the kinds of things that your pediatrician will think about. I'm not a pediatrician. I have a PhD, so there could be others, but Those are the main things that they're going to think about when kind of going through scenarios of where does your baby's risk status fall on the spectrum of like, this kid's got tons of iron, no problem, or like, yeah, this is something we want to monitor and track and maybe change formulas. So first thing, anytime you change your baby's diet, definitely call your pediatrician. If you are transitioning off of a European formula, first, I'm just really sorry. I'm sorry for any parent that has to transition off of a formula when they weren't intending to. It's awful, it's stressful, it's emotional. My heart goes out to you. I'm sorry, and I'll end it there. Here are some formulas that may be a good fit that are US FDA approved. So if you're on any of the standard European formulas, so like HIP stage 1, stage 2, Hala cow, the standard, stage 1, stage 2, Lebenswert, Kendamil, so standard intact protein cow's milk formula. Two particular formulas in the US that kind of hit that Europeanish feel are a new formula called Bobby. I think you have to order it. Oh no, you can order it on their website and it's available in certain states. So Google it and you can at least find it from the website. They are the only, God help us, the only US formula that is both organic and grass-fed. So if those are factors that drew you to European formula, that's great. That's great. And they also don't use palm oil in their fat blend. So that's a great option to have. That's fully FDA approved, like legit US formula. The other one that flies under the radar a lot is Similac Pure Bliss. Similac Pure Bliss is obviously by Similac. It is grass-fed. It is not organic. But it is grass-fed. It's the only other grass-fed formula we have. It also doesn't use palm oil. So it kind of hits some of those boxes that people who are drawn to European formulas like. The other, you know what, I'll just leave it there. There's lots of other options, but those are two that are often overlooked. If you're on one of the specialty formulas like Hip Comfort, your closest to Hip Comfort in the US is Gerber Gentle. It's not, none of these are identical, and there's certain recipe blends that are available in Europe that just aren't available here. But Gerber Gentle is going to be your closest, and the protein source is the same. So from a tolerance standpoint, your baby probably should transition fine if they're doing well on Hip Comfort, moving to Gerber Gentle. If you are on one of the HA formulas, so it's Hip HA Pre or stage 1 or stage 2, it's actually almost the same protein blend as the Hip Comfort. So Gerber Gentle might be a good fit. If you're on the HA Pre because you wanted to avoid the starch, check out Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle. It's a pretty brand new formula, but it's partially hydrolyzed, it is organic, and it is 100% lactose, so it doesn't have maltodextrin or starch or corn syrup solids. Lastly, if you are using the Hala Goat, which is also very popular, Mama, I don't have great news. We don't have any infant goat formulas available in the United States. We do have Cabrita, which is a goat milk-based formula, but it is a toddler formula. So in my head, I'm like, ooh, I would not want to be the pediatrician getting this call, because you're like, well, you're already going kind of off-label using a European formula, but it's still off-label using a toddler formula for an infant. So, ooh. So that is a discussion to have with your doctor. And what I would do is look at the ingredients, but also the nutrition info for each. And you can compare them to the FDA requirements so that you can see how they each align. And then all those things I mentioned are going to come into your pediatrician's decision. Is your baby 11 months old? Like, probably fine. Like, they're practically grown up. Is your baby 2 weeks old? That's a totally different baby. So that's something your pediatrician's going to consider. If your baby is a newborn, it's it's definitely safest to just go with an infant formula. And like I said, I'm really sorry, there's no goat milk options available in the US, but you can absolutely consider, like I mentioned, the Bobby formula, Similac Pure Bliss. And then I would say, get yourself over to my website, check out all the articles I have that will compare to the ingredients of all the formulas on the market. And if you need a little more help, I have a formula workshop for parents that walks you through every detail and gives a full breakdown of every ingredient from every single formula available in the US and all these ones that are popular that are European formulas but popular in the US, because I know this happens a lot where parents are in a situation where they need to switch from one direction to another. I really hope that's helpful. Again, my heart goes out to you. If you're watching this, you're probably a little panicked. Take a deep breath. So this is different from a recall that occasionally happens in the US. You guys remember a couple years ago where it's like Walmart has recalled formulas because a roach was found. You're like, oh my God, that's terrifying. And you're worried about contamination. This is not a contamination-based recall, but it is still a legitimate FDA recall. So it's not to be dismissed, but it is, at minimum, conversation with your pediatrician. And, this is something you discuss with your doctor. And the recall says, discard it. So it's a choice that you have to make with your medical team. I hope that's helpful. I'm just so sorry. Feel free to ask a question in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. I consider myself basically an expert in U.S. formulas. I've learned a lot about European formulas over the years because they have become so popular in the U.S., but I definitely don't know every single one, like I definitely do in the United States. So if you ask me about a formula I don't know about, I'll just say, I'm really sorry. I don't know about that. Call your doctor. All right, you guys are the best. My deepest, warmest well wishes for a good night's sleep to your family tonight, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye. I say bye like the buttons move every time I do this. Okay, one down.